when we were pretty newly married, we found out that we carried a very rare gene that made very sick babies. And so at the age of 25, I buried my first daughter at 3 days old. And we did adopt. We were blessed to adopt twin girls that were born on Christmas Day, which was a miracle in itself. I lived in survival mode for 20 years probably. And so I didn't really, so I had a tumor growing from the inside of my femur bone. No way of knowing how long it had been there, how fast it was growing. They ended up sending my cultures to Johns Hopkins, which is like the foremost leader in all things bone cancer, and they didn't have any idea what it was. So they ended up deeming it atypical borderline, but it had to come out. So I had to put my life on hold. You can make tragedy beautiful. I don't really have happy memories of childhood, I guess, put it that way. I have memories, but they're like flashes, and most of them are painful. You never knew which dad was coming home. Oh, for a long time, I didn't manage it at all. That was the problem. My coping mechanism was eating. I would just, anytime I had a feeling, I would find a food that filled that need, what I thought was filling the need at the time. And so I gained a lot of weight. So it's crazy how you can go through life and just, but you don't even, it's almost like you're looking at yourself from the outside in, like you're two different people. I had started realizing that I was eating my feelings, but still at that point, I hadn't really figured out how to cope with that. I use my faith a lot too. So prayer, of course. And when I got the cancer diagnosis, I got very angry because I said, have I not been through enough? I heard very clearly a voice say, this is what I've been preparing you for. And it just stopped me dead. The first words out of the doctor's mouth were amputation. He said, whenever I see, because he was a specialist and he worked with a lot of chondrosarcoma, a lot of bone cancer. And he said, when I see scans like this, it normally means amputation. And I said, well, we're not doing that. So let's have another plan. Bone pain is a whole different pain than any other kind of pain I'd experienced. I mean, I had pretty much natural childbirth with our first baby because it was sort of an emergency situation, and they just didn't have time to give me an epidural or any of those things. But that pain after the surgery was just indescribable. And as soon as that doctor saw my scan, he said, you have to get on a pair of crutches. You can't put weight on that leg at all anymore, because they were afraid that the bone would break and whatever was in there would spill out to my whole system. It gave me perspective because, like, just this morning, Saturday's leg day, I remember how grateful I am that I could have had no leg.
Hmm.
So,
Gratitude is amazingly beautiful when we can recognize that.
and now God is calling me to speak and, do these types of things, share my story, podcast, all that kind of thing. But, I didn't like to go into big crowds of people. If you've ever had a panic attack, you know that it's like nothing you've ever experienced. And wherever you are, you have to leave there right then, or you are going to spontaneously combust. I mean,
And then I was gaslit. And I was just like, you know what? I can't do this because, a huge part of my trauma and the experiences that I had were feeling as if my voice wasn't being heard, feeling as if I was intentionally being silenced. I was a foreign Black woman in a highly white dominated industry. I remember being called a little girl in a meeting. And I responded to that because one thing I don't do is take disrespect, right? So now I'm gonna let you know the non-corporate person, I'm gonna show you who I am. However, at some point we have to choose ourselves, right? And I think that's one part of being able to exit survival mode is having awareness of what serves us and what doesn't serve us anymore.
Once you come out of that fog, you realize that the other people around you also have problems and trauma and triggers, and that sometimes it doesn't have anything at all to do with you,
Hmm.
nothing to do with you. But I can't fix everybody. That was my thing. I was trying to fix everything and everybody because when I was a kid, I felt so helpless. And so when I got to be older, I wanted to help everybody. I wanted to fix everybody because I couldn't fix myself.
Oftentimes, people who are fixers are fixing everyone else because they don't have the strength to turn it inwards. They're not ready for that. So let me go find somebody else that's worse off than me. So that's why you end up in these repeated patterns and these toxic kind of situations because you're seeking something that you can fix, that you can, you know, put into a pretty box, all while everything else around you is falling apart.
I do not change my plans anymore for other people. I do not say that I like something if I don't, just because somebody else likes it.
Our subconscious mind is our biggest up. Like we can have the best intentions, and our subconscious mind is like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And we recycle 95% of our thought processes day to day. And if they're not challenged, we're literally holding on to processes from 1982. Like, what are we doing over here?
You have to take care of yourself first. And that looks different for everybody.
Disrupt the cycle, reclaim your life, and thrive on your own terms. And I will see you next week.